Hello and welcome to Mirror Realm. My name's Nick, known as Wyvern on the Discord servers. Today we're going to be picking back up our limited play series. How you doing, Jared?
Hello, I'm alright.
I think we were going to progress onto the exceptional cards and to rate those, but I think there's been a pretty big rules update really in the meantime. We did a separate video on that. Was it like 3 hours or something? Can't even remember.
Yeah, I think it ended up 3 hours. I feel like the discussion was a lot longer though.
Yeah, I had to edit it down a bit, believe it or not.
I think I remember we had to go for a dinner break and everything.
But that definitely impacts some of the cards. We're not going to reassess all the ordinary cards. We're just going to quickly scan over them. And if there's any that are obviously better or worse because of the rule changes, we will touch upon those and quickly rewrite those. But yeah, we're going to try and not get too bogged down in this part. We're not very good at that, but we'll see how we go.
We'll try and be quick for a regular discussion, not even just a Nick Jared discussion.
So, obviously, to some degree, every single card is impacted by these rule changes. So, we're going to try and just be less precise.
Yeah, it'll be like, the ones that drastically change, I suppose.
So, Brown Bears, I'm sure it's changed, but not for the purposes of this exercise, right? Move on.
Yeah, I think the only one that changes on this list is probably Squire, right?
Yeah. Let's keep it at that level.
It's basically I think the most things that change is just Lancers and a mobile, right? I can't even think of it. Like nothing's jumping to mind of rules changes that affect other things for AL ordinaries. There might be.
We'll see.
And we'll come across them if we see them, but that's what's jumping to mind anyway.
But this one in particular, obviously, is the Lancers are quite impacted. We'll talk about the Lance tokens a bit without getting too bogged down. But I think broadly, we think in limited play at least, they are worse. Somewhere between a bit worse and a bit more than a bit worse. Is that?
I think it's they're probably a little bit impacted and a little bit worse. But I think in general, you have to think way differently the way you use them. Like it's a lot more considering dropping before you attack, and like maybe you need to pick it up with something else, or potentially you just want to actually smash it on a site just to get rid of it so that they can't pick it up, or there's a bunch of different like nuance to it that we've only done one event so far, so I haven't like delved deep into it, so I haven't really figured out how I feel about it yet, but yeah, it's definitely a lot different than it was.
Yeah, it's different. It's not clear that the play experience is worse. Like you said, the decision making is a little bit more nuanced. Nuance is always good.
Yep.
But I think the Lancers themselves are a bit worse, right? Not so.
Yeah.
The change.
Well, they clearly just got nerfed, right?
Yeah. So yeah, and obviously all the. And I think the shame in a way of the set design is that obviously the set was designed for them to work how they work, to not how they work, basically.
I suppose I said nerf, but I mean technically it wasn't even just a strict nerf, right? Like if you're trying to get in more damage, like they're strictly better, right? Because now you can actually do damage to the face with them without having to hit the avatar. So there's definitely situations where it's important to break them on sites for extra damage to potentially push a death door. So it wasn't even just strictly enough. Just
Yeah, it's definitely So they're not strictly worse in all regards. They're just different, and on the balance of things, in limited at least, they're a little bit worse. In constructed, I'm not sure that they're even worse. Possibly better.
I mean they almost weren't even played in constructed, right? So
no,
probably
really
changed.
There was a couple of.
Yeah,
was there one that untaps at the end of the turn? Did that have a
lance? Yeah, the untap Sir and who else even has a lance? I know there's somebody else. No, it's Wow, I'll actually like this one. This is one of the best, probably the best Sirs in the game for constructed in particular.
Which one is it?
But
let's have a look.
It's water, air. Water, fire, sorry.
Harris? Who did I say? Oh. Sir.
Scroll down.
I say Garrus. Oh, it is Garrus. Yeah, Garrus is the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah. And then who even has it? So Primus has it. Primus?
Priamus, maybe.
Yeah, I can't actually read it. But yeah, like I think he's playable. But yeah, and then who else even has it?
Balin is playable.
Balin.
Not played a lot, but playable.
Charge Lance guy, Pelennor, and then probably... Lance. If he didn't have Lance, that'd be hilarious. But
yeah,
and then Yvain, who has Lance as well. So yeah, not a huge amount of Lances, and they're all like semi-playable. But
yeah,
the only ones that really see play are Agravain and so basically the Earth, Air, and Earth, Water, Fire.
Well, ordinaries. Okay, so yeah, so I think though, without getting too distracted, the Lances are. I think they're just a bit worse than limited. I get what you're saying if you want to do the extra damage to their face. Yeah. But the thing is, in limited, unlike constructed, doing the extra damage to the face, especially in a high tempo deck, you're fine. You're happy with that. But typically in limited, you would rather win on the battlefield in the minion combat, typically, right, than doing extra damage to the face under nearly all circumstances. So. And in Constructed, you run way more prospect that they'll kill your minion and steal your lance. In Limited, obviously, it can happen, but in Constructed, it can easily happen as well.
Yeah,
very easily happen. So, I think in Constructed, it's unclear. Maybe Lances actually are better now. It's totally unclear. But in Limited, they're a little bit worse. And therefore, if that was the only change to Squire would be a bit worse, I think. But it isn't the only change, because it's also a mobile. And the mobile got a huge buff.
Yeah.
How much it helps this
realistically,
guy.
I think
he can defend the side at least
now.
Most
of the time, he's just like a big blocker for that one side. Like basically, if you don't drop any lances, he's a 4-1, blocker for that one side. If you don't have any ways to move him, but it's probably you play him onto one of your own minions, give him a trick lance, and then have like a 3-1 defender effectively for that one particular side. So it's not unplayable for sure, but it's obviously better than it was, but it was real bad before. And I think it's still one of those cards that you don't really want in your deck, but it's nowhere near as punishing as it used to be.
No, I mean, I think part of the unfortunate thing, the blocking matters, obviously, but the fact that he costs 5, like, by the time you can play him, you can't really throttle them into a single site at that point in the game either, right? So they're always just going to be able to... move around him typically, but the one thing he has over the other Lance trick guys is you can buff for more power, right? So you can potentially get send in a 2-power unit and kill off a Baron Bears by giving him 2 lances instead of just the 1. So, but yeah, he's being so expensive. He's a lot worse than the other ones. Yeah. Interestingly, just the fact that he can now defend, I'm just noticing makes Wall of Brambles, like, as a combo, they're a little bit better. But, again, I think he's just dragged down by the fact that even though he can defend the site, by the time you can play him, they can probably move around him. But, maybe you've got the other side locked down. It's like you were just saying, where in Constructed, you're more likely to be able to kill something and pick up the lances, right? Like a 1-power unit that has 3 lances, that doesn't feel very safe on your opponent's turn. Like, just gets pinged away, and then all of a sudden your opponent has 3 extra lances, and you're feeling like real bad. All right, so let's see how we rated this thing originally. So we originally said that it was 1-1-2. I'm not going to get bogged down in this. Like, I think it was not really playable. It's still not really playable. Is that basically the case? Yeah, I think so. Just leave it and only worry about it when it matters. Like, I don't think it's gone up in value, but it's more you just feel less bad if it has to be in your deck now. Yeah, well, maybe that means it is a little bit better, but I don't know how much. Whether the fact that it can defend a side is not insignificant. That is quite the buff. But the lances themselves are a bit worse. But the fact that it has triple lance and you're afraid to lose them, the fact that something could just pick them up and immediately break them all is maybe, and it is 3 extra damage in the later part of the game where you're more, I don't know, maybe it's slightly less worse, but do we just not care? I think it's just we just don't care. Yeah, alright, let's just move on because we don't care. That's it for that one. Moving on.
Yeah, I think so.
Fire.
So we probably have to talk about Hamlet's Blaze in this section as well, because of the way Bog has changed.
Yeah.
So the way Bog's changed, it's like Bog is way worse now. It's still like playable and potentially probably ends up in any deck you draft it, because it's still better than a generic site. But yeah, it's much worse. Which, because you probably want to take this less often, you're going to end up with less of them in your deck, which, you know, all of a sudden makes Hamlet's Ablaze worse, because it's only good if you have this card in your deck in a decent enough number that it's worth potentially having the combo pull off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's...
I mean, there is the obvious, to some degree, the flip side of that argument that everyone else won't be picking them as well, as readily.
Yeah, but rightfully so.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't really want to be in a position where you are prioritizing picking them. Your deck will just
it used to be very much that you were willing to take Bog over the other water sites, and I don't think that's true anymore.
No, and I mean, depending on how your deck was shaping up, like you would as well, like Bog was, you were okay if it was, you know, pretty high pick, right? Third pick in pack.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a big fan of this
now
card before.
You'd be
I can't remember
really
what rated
sad.
it, but...
Like, you would not want to take this, not pick 3, not pick 4, not pick 5. Like, this falls all the way down to a much later pick, right?
Yeah.
Where you're happy picking it up. Obviously, versus just the vanilla water side, it's still a massive upgrade. But it was a premium side before. We'll get to that after. But...
Yeah. It probably just need that little mention just for now.
For now, we're talking about Hamlet's Ablaze.
Yeah. I think that's all that really needed to be mentioned for that.
Yeah,
in general.
But the difference here really is basically it's Hamlet's Ablaze is now just way worse because you just because
its good game potential is like way high, way lower now.
Yeah.
You're gonna get it. Yeah, you don't get to use it
it's way worse, but it's worse. I mean, is it just 002 now? Instead,
probably.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can still lock the stuff on their site and you can still kill it.
Yeah,
like the combo still works. It's unchanged to some degree, but the difference is
I suppose the Blaze doesn't actually get worse.
The difference
it's still
is
good.
You're less happy to play
the combo.
You're less not the combo as such, but you're just less happy to play the Bogs, right? But you're still you're still going to be perfectly happy probably to play them. You just don't want to pick them high. I'm not sure it changes the dynamic that much.
Yeah, it might not actually,
because nobody else will be picking him. Maybe you can easily end up with just as many, and you don't have to pick them early to do it as well. Obviously, it's all about a balance, right? Like, you don't have to pick them up in the first 3 picks. Maybe you still have to be willing to take them as a 5th pick. Maybe you're okay with that.
I'd say it's probably... You probably end up with less Hamlet's Ablazes, because you sort of want to take Bog around about the same time as you would be taking a Blaze now. So, you know, I mean, if you're ending up just getting them like 14th, 15th pick for the Blazes, you're probably happy, but yeah, it's not something you really...
Blazes deeper than 10th pick for sure.
Yeah.
They normally go before the real trash cards, the last couple. I don't know. I'm not sure. Not sure I care enough to change it. I think at the end of the day,
I think
if you have 5 Bogs, it's still perfectly playable if you're playing Water Fire, for sure. You're going to want to play it. It's just about prioritization in the picks and how willing you are to take these things. But at the end of the day, Bog and Hamlet's Ablaze are both in, you know, they're just going to be deprioritized by everybody as potential picks, which sort of just doesn't necessarily make it any harder to get them if everybody's deprioritized it.
Yep.
So I'm not sure. Maybe it is slightly worse, but I think not enough for any percentage, not points on the system.
Yeah.
Right. So, Reckless Squire. We originally had that.
I feel like this
4,
is probably
5, 7.
the Squire that changes the least.
Probably.
Because it was, most of the time, it was just used as more of like a 2 damage burn spell with the dude that is randomly stuck around. And it still does that job exactly the same. Where it's a bit more awkward now is if you just like you're on the play and you just want to jam it, you want to hit, just get in for some, curve out, get a dude down, apply some pressure, pretty much. That's where it got worse, because now you don't really want to just hit a sight with
before,
it.
If you finished your turn with him on their side of the board with a lance, you're potentially blocking them from playing stuff, right? Because it's just going to die.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I guess you can still move there and not do the damage, obviously, but that's worse than doing the damage, obviously.
Yep.
So it's probably.
I think overall, I don't think this guy's numbers change. Like, I think he probably stays around about the same. I mean, maybe his average game is a bit worse, but is it like a whole point worse? I don't know.
Maybe his bad game is worse. I don't know.
I mean, his good game would still be the same, though.
Yeah. Like, he can still effectively move to hand the lance off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets enough worse that the points really change for him. He's just a little bit more awkward now, but he still does his like what you want him for.
Awkward
as
is
well.
worse, but yeah, okay.
I don't know. Not like a whole point worse. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because I haven't played enough, but I'm quite.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm quite off-put by
change,
the inferior lance, like in limited. I'm quite.
So
I've moved from being perfectly happy to play these squires, especially this one, to having it in the draft and choosing to not play it over other stuff.
So the one event we've done, I've had this in my deck, and it was still just as good as it always was. Didn't really cause me any issues, but we might play another 10 events. I might have another 10 times, and it's just terrible every time. So time could tell on this one, but overall, I don't think it's like. It's definitely not as impacted as some of the other ones, I don't think.
Alright, so you just want to leave it then? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I don't think it's... I mean, do you want to change it? Like,
I don't know. I'm just trying to look like I would... I mean, okay, so I would way rather play Blacksmith Family in my deck over that, and they're rated the same. As such, on the system.
Well, they're not. I mean, on the average,
on
sure.
The average, but I would way rather... Like, it's not even close for me. I would way rather play it in nearly every deck.
I don't know. I feel they're both doing very different things, so I wouldn't really directly compare them anyway.
They are doing different things.
And they're probably still... They probably are still
the
pretty
fact that they're doing very
like,
different things in nearly every deck, I would still rather play Blacksmith Family.
I mean, I'd be pretty happy running my Squire into your Blacksmith Family that you just played.
Yeah.
That's just a straight answer. I think because there's so many 2-power units that you're just like, whenever you're on the play, that the Squire just like straight up kills so easily. I think you're probably still fairly happy to play him.
Alright. Moving on.
Sure.
Water... It's... don't think... there's anything really impacted, right? Other than the Squire?
Yep.
I
think this guy is still pretty solid, just as a trick a lot of the time. But more so for the tap than the lance now. Like, you can do some pretty nice things with the tap in combination with the lance as you could before. But now it's just the lance is... I mean... So the most awkward thing with the lance change, I find, is a lot of the time you could give someone a lance and make your guy unblockable for the turn effectively, because they don't want to just like chomp block, right? And you don't break a lance on a site previously, so it's like it stops them from being able to attack it back as well. So, but now that's completely gone. So the tap on this and him just holding the lance is so that you can get in the damage unblockable on your other guy, and like unblockable is like potentially stopping them from doing a double block and killing a guy for free, as well. You know, along that line of thinking. But now this guy is more like tap a guy down, make sure your dude gets in for maximum value, and then you just have like a 2-1 first striking blocker sort of thing. So I'm not sure how much worse this one got.
The reason why I think it's worse is just because of the main thing that they're going to drop when they drop everything they're carrying is a lance token, and they're way less likely to have a lance token if they break every single time they do anything.
Yep, that's fair.
So I think that's the main reason, because it's a pretty big play when you tap their thing, it drops their lance, you kill something, and then you also pick up the lance all through the same play, right? Like, that's a massive swing.
So I have a feeling from the way you've been talking is like, you think lance is just going to go away drastically from AL Limited. I don't think it will. I think there's still going to be plenty of lances around, because you just sort of have to still play them.
Well, no, I'm not saying... Okay, so if...
I mean, you still get this off, like, plenty.
If you play Reckless Squire and if you attack with something now, if you attack the site to do the damage, the lance breaks. So they're not going to be able to drop it if they attack your site. Partially, I think there will be less lances played because there'll be less lances played. It may not be that much, but there would be less. But mostly, I think it's because they're going to break every time somebody hits a site. They will just generally... So those two factors combined are going to mean, on average, there are less lances in play. And in Limited, some massive percentage of the time with this card, if they're going to drop anything, it's going to be a lance. You're rarely going to get a Ring of Morrigan or whatever the other couple of artifacts. The main other thing is the Sword and Shield, right?
The other flip side to that, though, is... I think what's going to end up happening is a lot more people are just going to be less willing to attack when they can't drop and pick up the lance on the same turn, and they're just going to not attack and keep the lance around. So that potentially even makes this card better, because there'll be more often that you're getting the tap and the drop. So it's definitely going to depend on how the way the set just ends up playing out now, to whether or not this gets worse or better. Because both sides of that, are possible. And I'm not sure which is correct yet, but I know I've gone down both play lines already in the one draft that we've done, so I can't say for sure which is better yet. And it's definitely going to come down to game states, to whether or not breaking your own lance is better or not. Or leaving it untapped as a blocker and not... like just breaking it on a site for extra damage.
Yeah, sure. I mean, part of we have to some degree have a guess though. But are you basically just saying it's the same?
I don't think it's going to end up the same, but I don't think we have enough information about how the set's going to play out to say if it got better or worse. But I don't think it's going to stay the same over like enough period of time.
You're sort of okay. I just don't see any world where this gets better than it was before. But okay.
Well, I mean, it definitely gets better if people aren't attacking and just leaving minions untapped with lances on them. It clearly gets better in that scenario.
Yeah, but I don't... Okay. I didn't... Yeah, I just don't see that happening materially more than it potentially already was before. I think the main reason Yeah.
No, it's definitely going to happen more. Like, because there's got to be games where you can't, like... You don't want to break the lance, but you also... Mostly because you can't pick it up with something else in your own thing, or you're not already on their site, and then just, like, drop, pick up, attack, pick it up after the attack sort of thing. But you also don't want to break it. So there's definitely going to be more times than previously that minions are just going to be untapped with lances on them than there was before. Because now it's a decision whether or not you attack and break a lance, like just for damage to the face, versus saving a potential lance trick and not getting direct damage in over a game.
Yeah.
Like how we were saying
I get what
earlier,
you're
where
saying. I just don't think there will be as many lances. I just don't think they're as good, and I just think people will play them less, and there'll just be less lances. I know you're disagreeing, but yeah, it's hard to without having actually played to reach a conclusion there.
In the one draft we did, there was multiple lances played in every single game that we played, that I played over my 4 rounds. So I don't know if that's true yet. Maybe it's just people haven't adjusted. But I know you beat me in our last draft because you had multiple lances in that game, and I didn't have this guy. I didn't draw this guy to just win the game by taking it and beating you. But
yeah, I didn't play any squires though.
No. So. But you still played lances, and I definitely played against someone who had 3 forges in their deck, and I don't think that card's going down in value. Maybe it goes down a little bit.
Sorry,
but...
to be clear, I'm not saying that there'll be no lances played. I'm just saying that there'll be less. So I just think, yeah, but like saying, I don't know. It seems at the end of the day, you think that good.
I think we just disagree about how much lances are going to be how much less lances are going to be played in general. I think there's still going to be plenty. I mean, that number probably goes down a little bit, but I don't think
it swings pretty substantially if no squires are played, though. That's a pretty decent percentage of all the lances.
Yeah, but I don't think they're all going away. The Earth one is just as unplayable as it used to be. I don't think the blue and the red ones go down by much, if at all. And I think the air one's just as mediocre as it always was, but maybe even less so. So maybe it goes from, still playing, just air just doesn't really get played now, maybe. But even then, it probably still ends up in some decks as a 23rd, 24th card.
Right. Oh, you want to leave it as it is then? That's what you're saying?
I don't think we have enough information on it to change that one.
Okay.
But it's certainly an asterisk on that one. It's it could go up, it could go down, I think.
And then in air, I think it's again just the squire. I don't think there's anything else. Pretty sure it's just the squire. So, where did we wait? Right here. That was 455. What is that on par with in air?
This one's probably the biggest loser of the squires.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Just mostly because he's effectively only a lance trick now. Whereas, the red one still acts as a removal spell. The blue one's still potentially a pretty solid trick. Whereas this guy, he's just not really doing much unless he's giving a lance away, and then his leftover body is...
Well, he can defend on the diagonal and hit first for 2 damage. Obviously, he always could. That's unchanged. I mean, really, the only thing that's changed is that, if he attacks a site, lance is going to break. That's the change. So, the fact that he doesn't have charge, there's less chance that was ever going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I suppose.
And I'm not sure. I don't know. I think they're all worse, but I'm not sure how. If the argument is that the other ones aren't worse, I'm not sure how this one is. It feels like maybe it was slightly more likely to attack than the water one. Maybe? Aside, I mean.
Yeah, I think so.
So, because it can attack on the diagonal, so there is more chance that it can find a spot to attack where it can't be defended. Obviously, the fire one has more chance to be able to attack just because it has charge, so it'll always be able to find a spot, so to speak. yeah, don't know. So what do you want to do with that one?
Don't know. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking the lance change isn't as big as we initially thought it was.
Yeah, and I still think that it's. I still think that I think all of these are worse, but we'll just I can't find it difficult to sort of justify how
I'm
the other
not
ones
saying
aren't
that
worse
they're
at
all
all, but
not
this one
worse.
is.
I'm just saying I think the gap in how much worse they are. I think you might think it's way more than I think it is. I don't think it's that big, whereas you seem to think it's quite big. That they come like all the squires become unplayable. I don't think that's true.
Not unplayable. They just shifted from.
Didn't you say you don't want them in your deck now?
Yeah, I don't want them in. So, but that
Wouldn't
doesn't
that be
mean they're
unplayable?
They just fall. For me, they're just falling into the same bucket as. Am I choosing between a weightless squire or a power of flight? Before you're basically probably going to take the weightless squire. Now, or a tactical move. So before, for example, let's see. Before I would take weightless squire over tactical move, I believe. I would, generally, most decks. I will play weightless squire before power of flight. Again, generally, most decks. Now I think I'd rather take both of those cards in my deck over weightless squire. Generally, most of the time. Let's see how we weighted them. So we weighted tactical move way worse. And we weighted power of flight actually better. So that's fair enough. This one is going to be dependent on the deck a lot, actually. So
I mean, I think I would still probably rather play weightless squire than Hider Sprites most of the time. And I think we rated Hider Sprites lower than Squire. I think I'd still probably rather play Squire.
Yeah.
Don't know. I don't know about that though. That's not true. But I just know like
I don't know about that
I
either.
very
Hider
rarely
Sprites
end
get a
up
lot better if
playing
you have
Hider Sprite.
lookouts as well, which
Yeah.
are the same element. Like being able to nab their turn 2 or turn 3 play, that was their only turn 2 or turn 3 play, and have them play nothing that turn can be game winning tempo swing. Obviously it's anyways, yeah. Not sure. Yeah, I think they're all just that little bit worse, and they're just falling into the same bucket as, like we're saying, the Hider Sprites, and it's more just before. I would have generally just, like you're saying, I would play the Squire over the Hider Sprites, and now I'm like, should I play the Hider Sprites?
Yeah, now it's probably like if I have a lookout, I play the Sprites. If I need the trick,
it's like I need to consider the whole deck now.
It's more of a conversation. Yeah.
Before it's just, tactical move. I'll be more inclined to play it. It's closer. Generally, you're probably going to want to play the Squire, but it's closer to the degree where you would want to look through your deck and check if there's enough stuff going on that you would want to work with the tactical move. So I don't know, but yeah, it's just I find it difficult to say that this Squire is worse, but the other ones aren't as well. So right, so moving on, Just a Rock. I guess that's didn't magically get way better. Moving on.
I don't think it got better for limited, but it definitely got better for constructed.
Yeah. Yep, we're doing limited, I guess.
Yep. Yeah.
And the sites. Is it just Bog?
Forge.
Check the rest.
Forge, obviously.
I guess some smaller degree Bonfire, but I can already see with our conversation, we're basically saying that that's going to be unimpacted, probably.
Yeah. I don't think we rated Bonfire very highly anyway, did we? I think it was more of a, if you get them, you play them, but Bonfire, otherwise... What did we put them at? I can't remember.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So...
I don't think that changes.
Entirely against them. I mean, it's interesting, because if your theory... If you're sort of saying that... that...
I mean, yeah, they potentially get better.
Maybe...
Like, for the same reasons why the blue square get better, this one gets better, right? But...
the same potential reason, I suppose. But the Bog for sure is worse. How much worse?
So, I mean, it doesn't kill red caps anymore. So that's relevant.
Yeah.
It
doesn't stop them from hitting your
harder to use.
Once they're already
it's more that Yeah, it's more that it's harder to use, right? Because it basically has to be a frontline site and it has to be very preemptive. It can't be like reactive as much anymore.
Yeah, and if they're smart as well, they would generally be able to play their minion where you can't bog it as well.
Yep.
Like, they just play it centrally instead of on an edge where you can get
Yeah.
a site next to it.
I think in the first few turns, it's probably still only slightly worse than it used to be, but past that, it's probably it falls off a lot quicker.
Yeah, we had it so high.
Definitely not a 778 anymore.
I mean,
And
now
it's
I
more
feel
like
the
the
honestly,
bad games.
Now you could convince me that Bonfire is better. Let's put it that. Maybe it isn't, but you could. But you could have the conversation.
I think the variance on it is what increases massively now. Whereas it used to be like very consistently good every game. Now it's like your bad games, it's going to do literally nothing because you can't play it in a site,
which basically
like a
puts
backline
it
site to
more
protect
like
things
Bonfire,
anymore.
right? Where you just don't snag anything with it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, but its good games are probably just as good as they used to be.
Yeah, and then its average game is
Maybe they're not
presumably
because it
quite a
doesn't
bit
kill red
worse.
caps anymore.
Is it 5 or 6? Oh yeah, its good game is worse as well because it doesn't kill the red cap priorities.
Yeah. So I think the average game's probably like a 4 now.
Is it
And
7
then the good
maybe?
games. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, which all of a sudden is obviously. I think it is still probably better than Bonfire, but this doesn't feel like an unrealistic gap.
But yeah, it's gone from the best site to just an average one that you're happy enough to have, but you're definitely not taking it over like good
We're
cards.
saying that a common village is better, and that's probably true.
I think that's definitely true now.
Forge is better. Probably at the moment we need to re-rate Forge. So
Yeah. I don't think we need to change Bonfire. I think
and then
Bonfire is
Forge
basically where it was.
is-
I think because it doesn't really have any like firesides don't really have any other contest over Forge, right? They're all pretty mediocre. Whereas Forge used to be really good. I think Forge is probably still the best fireside. Right?
Probably.
I mean, the other one's
Yeah.
Bonfire. I can't even think what the
You can still be
exceptionals is
playing
like.
multi-element deck
Funeral
and-
Fire.
Yeah, that is probably true, but you quite often play multiple elements, and you may have to choose between 2 sites. Like, it still could be worse, even if it's the best one. It could be worse than it was, even if it is still the best fire site.
Yeah. I mean, it's still. What do we have at 4, 5, 7? So it's likely the bad game probably still roughly around where it used to be, right? Maybe it's.
I mean, I find it hard again. If everything else that has alliances stayed exactly the same,
Yeah, I don't think
find
it changes
very
too
difficult to
much.
justify moving this.
I mean, the opportunity cost for it is like very low, right? So it still has basically all the same problems
Yeah.
and bonuses that it had before. So I don't think it really changes. It's not often you were going to play a Forge, pick up a Lance, and then attack from that on the turn you play it anyway into one of their sites, right? That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So I don't think it changes that line of play too much because a lot of the time it's just you play the site, you make a thing, and then you play like a defender on that site and pick it up straight away. That's like one of the main plays with Forge, right? And that doesn't change at all the turn you play it. Obviously, it changes future turns for when now you might have to want to attack the site, but I don't think it changes it too much. Maybe it does. Yeah, I don't think it changes much.
Alright, so I think we're done. So
Do you? Or?
Well, I don't know. Like, it's the same line of reasoning to me. It's like, I think Forge and Bonfire and all the Squires are worse. But if we're saying that all those other cards aren't worse, then I don't think Forge is... Like, I think the reasoning to not make all the other stuff worse applies to Forge, and I don't see how you say Forge is worse, but all those other cards are not worse, basically. Because the reasoning why Forge isn't worse is just because the argument is something like you don't mind not attacking sites and not breaking the lances and etc. So I don't see how Forge is somehow worse. Basically,
I don't think I was saying it's worse, was I?
No, you just I don't know.
Yeah.
You're just asking me for my opinion. I'm just saying I think all of that stuff is worse, a little bit worse. Does it distill down to a point somewhere? Probably on probably across all the ratings somehow. I think, for example, the high end play for the Shameless Squire is potentially. I don't know. I feel like they're all just a little bit worse. I don't know where it manifests in the rating system.
Well, I don't think the high end changes for any of them, right? Because isn't the high end basically using it as a good trick, not just hitting a site?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it just be the low end and the average at change on any of them?
Potentially, yeah. The Shameless Squire in particular, though, I think there's again we're just not agreeing. I think there will just be less Lancers played in general, or less Lancers in play at any given point in time in general. But that's a point of contention between us, so we're not agreeing on that one. So, if you don't agree with that point, then probably it's not any worse. Basically, so So, anyways, basically,
I do think games are going to play out differently around Lancers now, though. I think that's where we're bumping up again. Like, where you think there's just going to be less Lancers in decks.
Well, there will 100% be less Lancers in games that I play, because I won't be playing the Squires hardly ever.
So I think that might get counteracted by the fact that more people won't be they'll just be leaving minions untapped because they don't want to break Lancers now. I think that's where we're sort of bumping heads. Because it all comes down to the thing we talked about right at the start, where I think it was with the Earth Squire, even maybe, where it's what was it? I had a line of thought, I lost it, trying to think about what we were talking about. But it was more like, trying to save it, trying to use the Lancers as, generate value versus it was the face damage conversation, where they break when they get in for more face damage. But most of the time you want to use it as getting card advantage, trying to win that way. So I think due to that, you're going to have more turns where you don't attack because you want to try and get value from your lance that way. So I think because of that, there's going to be more Lancers you can interact with on your turn.
Not have to make that I think they're worse because you have to make that compromise between choosing between wanting to do damage to the site or keeping the lance, and being forced into that choice and effectively not getting in for a free damage on a turn or from maybe multiple turns. I think that makes them worse. Basically, the fact that you now have
I'm not saying that it doesn't make them worse.
Compromise makes them worse, I believe.
I agree with you there. What I'm saying is I don't think it makes them so much worse that you're not going to play them anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying before, where we just disagree on how much worse they are.
Yeah.
Whereas you think they've gone to the point where you just don't want to play them anymore, and I just don't think they're that bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm just saying. Yeah. Okay. So it might be. Not using the correct word. So it's not that they.
Well, I mean, you've said it multiple times, so I feel I'm just going on what you're saying, as opposed to what you're trying to do. I might have been a bit too.
So I just think they're more pushed down into before, to me, nearly. Okay, so let's pull up the water one in particular, because that was one that I was personally quite fond of. So, and maybe it's not the best example because of other alternatives, but for me, I would definitely. Yeah, it's probably not the best because it's pretty cleared out. I don't know. So before, maybe it's not the best because there's not nearly everything here. Like, for example, I think, well, we've already had the conversation about the family versus it, but I think you're playing.
Well, no, we had the conversation of family versus Reckless Squire.
Yeah, and presumably that argument is still the same. I probably would rather play the family versus this Squire, but it's obviously going to depend on the deck. But I'm probably playing the Squire still, even with these changes, over the Finwarth, over the Insult, over the Hob, over the Led Astray, and over the Magpie. and I'm probably not playing it over any of the other stuff. And that was true before, and that's still true now.
Yeah.
The closest one where you have a choice, I think, is between the...
Is that one, yeah. And
But
I think before, I definitely played the Squire over it, and I think still I do. But
look how close we had them. So we had 667 and 457. But this one in particular is quite bogged down in how many other 3-drops and 4-drops you have, and like...
Yeah,
this one is this decision is mostly dictated by the rest of the deck as such, not really comparing these cards. How likely you are to be able to cast it on curve with the double thresholds. How capable you are of, like how likely the lethal is to be really significant for your deck, and so on. So, yeah. So it's not the best.
Yeah, I think I value the lethal a bit less than you do, potentially. Maybe that's why I like the lance better, but I think I'm coming around a bit more on it. I don't know.
I'm trying to see in the case of fire. Like, so for now, like before, definitely, like, it's, where is it falling in the slot for me? I'm probably playing, again, let's ignore the families, but the Ruffians, I'm playing over them nearly always. So, same as the Burning Hands, same as the Giant,
which I think was
same as the Robin. Still not going to play the Scout above it. The Vikings, you're probably playing before the Vikings above it, and probably still are. I think of the Joust is the one where you're comparing.
And they're both good in different decks, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think the Joust, you really need like thick guys, right? Whereas the Squire sort of just like fills a different role of killing. Oh, I suppose they're both trying to kill smaller things, right? So maybe they are a bit more similar than I was thinking, but yeah. But it depends on the element, right?
Yeah. I guess all I'm really trying to say, though, is that... I'm trying to be clear here, because it feels like we're not really... I mean, we're disagreeing, but not by the margins that it may appear, let's say. So all I'm really trying to say is you have 24 cards in your deck, right? And if I'm playing Joust or Reckless Squire... It is the 23rd or the 24th card of the deck, probably. It's right on the tail end of the cards that make the cut. And
I think that was already the case previously as well.
It was, exactly. And all I'm saying is, let's say you have a 24th card in the deck, right? And you got to pick between Squire and Scout. Sorry, between Squire and Joust. It's going to be one of those as 24th card. All I'm saying is, now they're more likely to put the Joust in my deck, whereas before I was more likely for it to have ended up being a Squire.
I think this is probably a bad example because it literally comes down to how your deck...
The deck is, right? But if it's in the balance... if it's in the balance. I'm just saying, the margin has shifted slightly for all of these, and they were basically always competing for one of the very final slots in the deck, and they're just, to me, I'm more inclined to play other options, whatever they may be. Right, because it's not always like you're obviously not generally playing more than one element, so you could be picking between this Squire and a card in a different element, and it's not necessarily an ordinary card either, right? So there's a wide range of stuff that you could be choosing as a 24th card to get into the deck, and all I'm saying is these Squires for me before, if they were in the deck, they were always one of those final slot bots, and now I'm just, to me, they're a little bit worse, and that little tiny bit, like before, for example, if they were better, let's say, they could be a little bit worse, but they're still going to always make your deck, right? I don't know. Brown, there's plenty of cards that they're going to be in the deck as the 20th pick or above, and a little bit worse, they slide to 21st, but they're still going to easily be in the top 24. But the Squires, for me, that was never the case. Like, I've drafted plenty of Squires on Element that I was playing, and they didn't all make the deck. Like, lots of times I drafted Squires and they didn't make the deck, even though they were elements that I was playing.
I mean, that was always the case, though, right? And we're trying to talk about how they changed. And
I'm saying
they haven't changed that much. Whereas you're saying they've changed to the point where you don't put them in the deck in that situation anymore.
Yeah, well, okay. So for me, they're worse enough that the likelihood of me including them as that 24th card, which is where they would have been before, or 23rd or 24th, to be fair, is enough less that it's going to materially impact how often they end up in my decks. Basically. I think. Now, I could. I will be right in regards to how often they make my deck. As to whether that was the correct choice or not is another thing. So now, probably that to me manifests in at least 1 point on the system that they would be worse. But yeah,
I don't know. I think they still fill that exact same slot for me, and that slot always came down to me. Wasn't just based on how strong a card. It was always like what the deck needs, right? So I don't think they change enough of what they were already doing with the slight lance change that drastically changes. It
doesn't drastically change. No, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't see how we change.
There's all margins. Like you can definitely have a deck, for example, where reckless squat. Sure, you always obviously especially these 23rd, 24th picks, you're trying to fill them in with what the deck needs in particular, but they obviously can just be a deck where Joust is it's okay, it's not great, it's not bad, it's just in the middle somewhere, and Squire is also just in the middle somewhere for that deck. You have some bigger things, not that many bigger things, but enough for it to not be horrible but not great, and the same could be true for the Squire, right? So it's like all I'm saying is just when you have that type of deck, I was more likely to end up with a Squire in it before, and now I think it would be a Joust. So all I'm saying is like the margin has shifted a little bit, and because these Squires were competing for that 24th slot in the deck, if they get bumped down by one slot, it means they've moved from being in your deck to not in your deck. Whereas if there were any slot higher than that, that's not. They would go from in your deck to still in your deck, if that makes sense. So, and therefore, I think there will be less Lancers because if everybody had the same mindset as me, but you clearly don't.
Yeah, it's clearly we just disagree on the how big the change is.
But obviously,
I don't think the change is big enough to push them down. Like in my evaluation of them, basically compared to other cards.
And it's just hard to say because it's
pretty rare you would ever end up attacking a side with a lance on anyway. Like previously, like it happened, but it didn't happen that much because you generally don't want to have a minion just chilling around with a lance on it to let your opponent get effective value on how they dictate the trade into the lance anyway. So it wasn't like a massive amount of the time that it was relevant. And just the way the games play out, I think they will change how they play out now because of the breaking. That's why I'm not sure on how much I want to change my value on all of these cards effectively, because the game, it could completely change how games play out, and depending on how they change, will definitely depend on the strength of these cards.
Yeah. Yeah, to some degree we get.
That's why I had such an asterisk on that water on the water one.
Yeah,
because there's obviously so I think I think the top end of these cards probably won't change much, but it's just going to be their low end and their average game. That's probably, if at all it changes, that's what will change.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, like I said...
It's also we're evaluating it in, triple AL, right? These things are probably just going to have to end up in your deck in general because they make up such a, huge part of the ordinary play run, print run.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well... Again, I think they're competing for those slots towards the 23rd, 24th type of slots. Yep. But yeah, so yeah, and all I'm. Yeah.
But I mean, it used to be in Triple AL, you would end up with 3 of them or 4 of them in your deck, and you'd just be like, "This is what it is." But so
yeah, but that was also because I rated them reasonable. Yeah, it's also because I was picking them over other things, basically. So I don't know. It's hard to. At the end of the day, a lot of this has got to do with not, what cards other people pick and what cards other people put in their decks, ultimately, right? So it's... Yeah, not sure what else. I mean,
it's
it's
like
a bit
we've
unfortunate
described
that
through
we
this
played
playthrough.
one event basically with the change, whereas with the old rules we had played, I don't know, more than 20.
Lots. Yeah.
A lot.
Something much higher than one.
So, we've gone from a point of a sample, enough experience and a sample size big enough to have pretty firm views to basically speculating. Unfortunately. But yeah, okay. So the margins are potentially small in all cards except for Bog. That's the summary here. That's the only card I believe that we change a rating for.
Yeah. Well, Bog was like, it's not a lance change, but so the lance change was pretty small overall, I think, just as a general rule. Whereas the immobile change was not. That was a massive rule change. So it makes sense that the mod, where, basically, nitpicking over a very small lance change versus, a massive rules change, though. And it's clearly reflected in the way we're rating things, I guess. Whereas, we're both in agreement that change was so big that this card is trash. Close enough. Versus, a small change where we both just have a slightly different read on it. And that's generating most of the discussion.
Yeah. Yep, of course. And then it's probably a good insight into just, the reality is that, whichever way it goes, you're probably talking about should the ratings for the Shameless Squire have stayed exactly the same, or should this 5 have become a 4, basically. That's the nuts and bolts of it, right? And then if that does drop to a 4, then... I'm just saying it's now, because these cards are basically, if you look at these scales, they're just in that bucket of that. They're not in the 6s plus that auto make the deck, right? And then basically everything that's 3 or less automatically doesn't. And then you have that little range between 4 and low 5s where you're choosing between cards that are making up those final cards in the deck, right?
Yeah.
And
I think the biggest thing we're bumping into is the water one, because I think so the reason I'm so unsure about the water one in general is because we just don't know how much this limited format is going to change because of this rule. And it could go from it doesn't change at all, where it probably does calm down a little bit, or it could change to where you're just left with a lot of untapped units with Lance on them more often than not. And all of a sudden, this one actually goes up in value. And potentially you do just play it every time you play water. Maybe you don't draft it any higher. You probably still draft it roughly around the same value, but it's not that 24th card. It's like that 20th card sort of thing. But that depends completely on how the gameplay shakes out now.
Yeah.
And it might not happen, right? There's absolutely possible that doesn't change at all, and then it probably does come down in value.
Yeah.
We just don't know enough yet with all changes.
And we're not real, and unfortunately for us, we're never really going to be able to ever answer this question correctly as such, because...
New set's coming out soon.
One, yeah, because Gothic will come out at some point and we're just going to shift to drafting that when it does. And two, we now draft Arthurian Legends beta every week. So we're not, we were drafting triple Arthurian Legends for ages. And that's what this
I think
series
all
is
of these
for.
ratings change as soon as you add.
Exactly. But it complicates things to no end, introducing all of those extra variables from those 400 whatever beta cards, right? So we clearly can't do that. So yeah. But all I'm really trying to say is, we had a lot of experience with just triple AL, but it was with the old rule set, and we have this new rule set now, and we're actually never going to play triple AL with the new rule set. So we're never really going to be able to truly answer this question. We're only going to be able to answer the question with what it looks like with double AL beta, but that's different to triple AL.
Massively.
Yeah. So, but, got bogged down in quite a bit of nuance here, but the reality is this is how we talk all the time about everything, and that's how we look to get the little margins in the decks and stuff we build, right? Like we always...
I think it was a comment at the start of we'll try and be quick and not get bogged down 1 hour later.
Yeah,
Whoops.
Exactly. Whoops. But I don't know, you have to talk these things through to And
well, I mean, if we didn't follow it through, I basically would have come away thinking you think these cards are literally unplayable.
No, not
whereas we
not
talked about it a
unplayable.
bunch more, and we got to the point where you were like, no, they're playable, but they're the 23rd, 24th slot, which is what they were before. So,
sort of, yeah, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they were competing for that slot, and now they're that little bit worse and that less likely to end up in that slot, basically. I'm just more. I'm going to be more inclined to play the other stuff that's competing with those slots over these cards. But the interesting thing is, in AA or beta, you generally end up with, because a lot of the beta threshold stuff is a lot more forgiving. You don't generally have to play these at all, basically, in any deck where they're not suited.
Your 23rd, 24th playables generally come from beta because they're just stronger in general as well.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, Bog worse, in summary.
Yes.
Bog, lot worse. Everything else, if it's different, it's margin. It's marginal, but again, because they're competing for those slots right at the end of the deck, marginal matters quite a bit more than it would for other slots.
I mean, and clearly Lance, just as a trick in general, is still just as powerful as it was before. But it's only if you're actually using it as a trick now. Now you can't just get generic value of just it chilling. Now you actually have to use it as a trick. Because breaking it on a site for 1 extra damage, some games it's going to matter, but more often than not, it's not. I think the bigger thing that comes up with breaking your lance on a site for extra damage is if you don't want your lance sticking around for them to potentially steal it. That's when you're going to be attacking for the damage more often than just trying to get in that 1 extra chip. I think that's going to be more relevant, but overall, if that's how you have to use it, that's the scenario that comes up for your argument where it's it probably should have just been something else. And I'm more than happy to agree on that.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, maybe just playing with AL beta, it's not the same, obviously, but you can probably still form a bit of a view about how people generally use lances when they are in play, right?
Yeah.
Because we're sort of theory crafting, and to some degree know how we would personally do it, but it's not just what we personally do that matters, right? It's what everyone else does as well that matters, and we have to play more to see how everybody else uses them, basically. All right. Should we... Anything else on this section to wrap up before we move on? Move on in life?
I think that was everything for ordinaries, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we did artifact as well. Yeah, so that should be everything.
So we'll wrap this episode up here. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or you'd like to request for us to cover something specific in a future episode. The next episode that we release, we recorded it at the same time as the episode that you just watched, and that episode will be for looking at the exceptional Earth cards in this limited play series. That episode should be released within the week. Until then, keep safe, keep well, and keep enjoying your sorcery. Cheers.